Hello, good beautiful Sunday. Today is June 26, And we are at episode 97 of the HR Cafe, Usapang Trabaho, Buhay, Iba Pa. We have an international guest for today's episode, and that will be Miss Ester Martinez, the CEO and President of People Matters, who's based in Singapore. And her topic would be how the year 2020 changed the world and how technologies are converging exponentially. And of course, how this affects employers, employees, and basically the life of an HR professional. So let's start our program right now. And the HR Cafe, Usapang Trabaho, Buhay, Iba Pa is an online talk show program hosted by the Philippines HR Group. My name is Coach Darwin Rivers. I'm one of your HR Cafe servers. I'm the founder and president of the Philippines HR Group. I'm a certified life coach, public speaker, motivational speaker, and HR consultant. I'm also the VP of Global HR Operations of a BPO company. Joining with me for today is our HR Cafe server, Mentor Tina Coan. Mentor Tina is an operations and HR leader with broad local and overseas experience. She's a general manager for a large retail company and known for her online content and blog tinainmanila.com. Hi, Mentor Tina. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday and happy June to everyone else. We would like to greet all our early birds. We have Isaiah Kiangwi, who is watching from Kenya. Vince Carlson is kind enough to tag all of his friends. There's Lady Suzette Alimagno Resulta, Darius Campoa de la Cruz, JJ, Cyrus Mojica, Giselle Rosel Magpantay, Josel Guevara, Darius Campoa de la Cruz, and everyone who is watching, please feel free to put your name, your company name, and where you are in the Philippines or otherwise so we can give you a shout out in the show.
Okay. Also, just to remind everyone, our guest for today, as I
Mm.
mentioned, is the CEO of People Matters. And if you have any questions about the upcoming Tech HR conference, this is the largest Southeast Asia conference for HR leaders that will be happening in Singapore this coming August. This will be a very opportune time for you to be able to ask our guests what is expected on the Tech HR conference. So let's start with our program. Here at the HR Cafe, we provide timely use and updates. We also impart knowledge and experience that are value adding and beneficial to our audience. We discuss problems, issues, and challenges and provide answers and resolutions through our guest resource. If there are any new technology, tools, and processes, or any best practice in the industry, we discuss it here and share it to you guys. If your company is also hiring, we invite you, we encourage you to post it at the comment section and we'll be happy to announce it because the HR Cafe is also a virtual job board and we would like to ensure that prospective employees will be connected to prospective employers. We also bridge understanding between employers and employees, and end of the day, we provide inspiration and motivation to the working Filipino community. We start our program every week via Wow Quote for the Week. And our Wow Quote for the Week comes from a visionary leader. This is John F. Kennedy, a well-known political figure, a past president of the U.S. According to JFK, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. Let me just repeat this. Change is a law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. How does this particular quote resonates to you, our audience? Please share it to us, and we'll be happy to share it to the community. Let's start with you, Mentor Tina.
For me, alam mo sa totoo lang, the Philippine ever since I've come back to the Philippines, it's been an influx of many things happening. There's not a boring time in living in the Philippines, be it parang may nangyayari sa daan, may nangyayari sa pamilya mo, sa trabaho, sa supplier, customers. Like I do believe that HR is one of the most dynamic fields, and not for the weak at heart, because it's not a routinary job. So even if you think now, sige, every time payroll twice a month, but beyond that, parang napaka-exciting talaga ang field of HR. So very important, change is always there. So one of the skills that the good HR managers need to develop is the ability to adjust alongside change. Kasi a lot of us, tuwing may nangyayaring bago, nasa-stress tayo. Parang for us, parang ano na ba naman to? Bakit ganito nangyari sa akin? Bakit ito na naman bakit nag-aaway na naman sila? Because you're handling a lot of people, and humans are very unpredictable. The only thing we need to accept is that life is full of changes. And the best way for us to handle is to accept talaga na, alam mo, exciting talaga ang buhay natin. And we can't prevent problems from happening, but what we can do is we can learn on how to manage these problems as they happen. The most important thing is, araw-araw pagpasok natin, blank slate, meditate tayo. Walang problema. Pag may nangyaring problema, okay lang yan. Because you know that change is the law of life. If you already accept that life will be interesting at pabago-bago talaga yung pangyayari at hindi mo control, then you will face these problems with calmness. Because, o sige, late na naman siya. O sige, etong tao na to nagbubugan sa labas. So you don't stress about that anymore. Instead, you look at it, okay, what can I do to manage this process and move on to the next? And when you are able to handle this, kasi a lot of people are saying, anong classes ang pwede kong makuha in order to be a good HR? But classes and all the education and the learnings are very past focused. Yung once na nakasulat na sa libro, tapos na. It's
It's
already in the
theoretical, no?
past, 'di ba? It's already in the past. What you need to do is you need to develop that ability to look at in the future and be able to adjust to future changes. Kasi if lagi tayong tumitingin sa anong dating nakasanayan natin, anong inaral natin dati, anong nangyari sa dati nating kumpanya, mahirap kang mag-succeed sa present mong kumpanya kasi sigurado may mga things talaga na hindi mo talaga ma-expect. Like even for me right now, sabi ko, ito lang yung trabaho talaga, ito lang yung trabaho na every year, parang ang dami kong iba't ibang problema. Akala ko tumatalino na ako, but the only thing constant is, every year, feeling ko ang bobo-bobo ko pa rin. Kasi there's many other things na dumadating na hindi ko talaga alam or hindi ko expect. And a lot of people are demotivated by that. For me, instead of being demotivated, feel challenged. Yes, marami ka pang matutunan. Pero mas maganda yon, di ba? Kaysa sa isang trabaho na alam mo na lahat, wala ka nang kailangan matutunan, and then yung ibang tao na lang natututo sa'yo. Approach your job in a mindset that you're still learning every single day, and you improve yourself every day, and that's how you do HR, not by looking in the past or the present, but looking forward in the future. And with that, I'd like to greet Robert Baron Sabio, HR and Admin Manager of Aggregates Company. Magpagpalang Sunday afternoon to all. Miss Lenny Goods from Cavite, and Matilde Fernandez Belen is from Iloilo. How about you, Coach Darwin?
Well, there are many learnings that you've already
Mm,
shared about change, no?
mm,
And for me, siguro, what we know about change is it's
mm,
constant. Sabi mo nga, it's something that is part of life. And part of life, aside from death and taxes, is also
mm,
change, di ba?
mm,
And we should always, I know, we should always embrace change. A lot, majority of us, when there is change, we tend to be what? We tend to be frightened. We tend to be, we tend to not welcome change because we tend to live in the comfort of our own comfort zone, our
mm,
own little box. And
mm,
we're too afraid to go out of that comfort zone or to go out of that box because we don't know what will happen. And
Mm.
sometimes change is what fuels a lot of a lot of great innovations, also in terms of processes and also in terms of policies. I'll give you an example. Prior pandemic, a lot of companies, 80-90% of the companies in the world doesn't have any policy about how to tackle
Mm.
uh, a pandemic, 'di ba? Meron
Mm.
sila mga BCP, pero normally yung mga business continuity plan nila would normally focus on fire, earthquake, natural calamities, or people induced calamities or whatnot. Pero walang nakaisip na paano nga pala kung magkaroon ng ng viral or pandemic. How can companies be still able to survive if employees are now no longer able to come to work? But
Mm.
nevertheless, because of that particular change in the environment, a lot of companies were forced to pivot, were forced to go out of the box, were forced to think of ways to implement policies and processes that will
Mm.
still support the business, even though it's something that they haven't even done. Diba? And one of the best I think one of the best learnings we had in terms of not embracing change is we've seen companies, Fortune 500 companies like Kodak, like Nokia, a lot of Fortune 500 companies in the last 2 decades that did not embrace change. And where are
Mm.
they now?
No more.
'Di ba? No more. Kasi their
Mm.
leaders are tend to what? They tend to be complacent. I'll give you an example, which Blockbuster.
Mm.
Blockbuster had an opportunity to actually invest in Netflix. But the
Mm.
CEO of Blockbuster said that people would not support a free movie or free live streaming.
Mm.
Kasi nga, hindi siya niniwala na there will be an opportunity for the internet to be as fast as that. So they didn't invest. And what happened? When Netflix was is now very popular, Blockbuster closed all of their stores.
Mm.
Diba? So when Nokia had an opportunity to improve their their mobile camera, instead of aesthetics, they would have improved its technology. They did not do it, but iPhone or Apple focus on technology. And what happened right now? Nokia, from being a top tier mobile producer, is no longer there, or is well, right now they're at the bottom of the competition, but they're trying to adapt, but it's too
Mm.
late. So what I'm trying to say is, if you are feeling change, if you feel there's a need for change, embrace it. Don't be afraid, because even in our life, 'di ba? Nagpapalit tayo ng boss, nagpapalit tayo ng CEO, nagpapalit tayo ng office mate. Ano yung normally na naririnig natin sa ating mga co-employees? Nako, wala na yung manager ko. Ayoko na I'll just resign and move to another company. Nako, iba na yung president o yung CEO ng company. Ayoko na kasi magbabago na yung mga policies ng company. If you would always have a mindset like that, and you do not embrace the things that is being brought up by change, then at the end of the day, palagi ka na lang magsa-start, or palagi ka na lang babalik dun sa pinanggalingan mo, kasi nga you're not developing, you're not embracing the learnings that change is giving you. So that's
Mm.
it from my end. Baka meron tayong mga thoughts from our audience.
Wala pa so far, but we do have Daday Calayahe Dino, who's watching from Parañaque, and Marigold Rivera, HR head from Producers Bank, who's watching from Nueva Ecija.
Thank you, everyone. Let's proceed. This is one of the hot topics that I've read last week, and I know that Dina's also um, answered this at the Philippines HR group. But let's discuss. At these times na napakarami talaga sa ating mga employees ang kulang ang kanilang pera, naghihirap sila, lumalaki pa ang kailangan nila, there are times talaga na they need external help aside from the help that is being given by the company. So there are times where employees would ask loans. And of course, part of the process of asking for a loan is that need to have a certification from the company. There are a lot of times where our employees would ask us to change some details of his or her COE para madaling ma-approve yung loan. Alam mo, even from my own team in the past
Mm.
uh, previous companies, may mga lalapit sa akin, sir, baka pwede namang i-adjust natin yung tenure ko para madali po ako ma-qualify dun sa loan. Or sir, baka naman po pwedeng ibahin ko yung salary dun sa COE para naman po mabilis po ma-approve yung loan kasi kailangan po, nasa hospital po yung mom ko. Or sir, baka po pwedeng yung title ko po, imbis na maging specialist, baka pwedeng supervisor kasi supervisor naman po talaga yung scope ko para lang po madaling ma-approve yung loan. What are your thoughts of this? Should we, as HR professionals or even as employers, grant this particular kind of request coming from our employees to think na alam natin na highly impacting yung magiging decision natin. Kasi kung hindi ma-approve ng loan application si employee, there's an opportunity na mag-abscond na lang siya or maging less productive siya or baka mamaya maging masamain niya at maging masama yung feedback niya sa inyo bilang boss. What are your thoughts about it? Let's start with you,
Right.
Mentor Tina, since alam ko you wrote a very detailed discussion about
Okay.
this.
I'll leave the final answer to you. Pero let me explain first. Yung COE na yan, right? Nakasulat dyan yung role mo, kung kailan ka nag-start, kung magkano po yung sahod mo. Because this, a lot of companies slash banks slash agencies use this as a basis on how much money they will lend it out to you. So, kunyari, mas malaki yung sahod mo, mas malaki din yung maloloan mong amount. And that is because you have a larger capacity to pay. A lot of people just look at the loan application as magkano yung makukuha ko from the bank or from an agency. They always forget the question, may kapasidad ba akong magbayad? Because aside from the loan application that you're doing, I'm pretty sure na max out mo na sigurado yung SSS loan mo, yung pag-ibig loan mo. That's the reason why you're having home credit loans, scooter loans, and whatever loans that you want to have pa. External loans beyond the SSS and the pag-ibig loan. And you want more money because you have more need. The problem is, if for example, you're a minimum wage worker, and you do apply for a loan that's higher than what you can pay for, you will have to pay for that. The higher the loan that you get, the higher the premiums that you have to pay per month. So for example, if nangutang ka ng 80,000 na motor, then babayaran mo may 3,500, may 5,000. Eh magkano lang yung sahod mo talaga? Let's assume you're just a minimum wage worker. That actually leaves you only two-thirds of your income, which is really not enough for your daily needs. So instead of buying a motor that is cheaper, pero not as perfect, not as high-tech, pero magagastos ka ng isang mas motor kasi yun talaga ang gusto mo, don't forget, babayaran mo pa rin yun on the next 1, 2, 3 years. I've noticed with a lot of employees, they apply for loans, but they never think about paying. And when the company finds out about these loan payments, they do have that mandate to deduct it from your payroll with or without your approval. Lalo na if it's SSS and pag-ibig ha, the company will know about it kasi lalabas po talaga sa system namin when we generate. It will come out as a billing. Hindi mo matatago yan even if your loan is from 1998, 2004. Makikita namin talaga yung loan kasi automated na ngayon ng SSS. Hindi tulad dati. Dati, hindi namin malalaman. Ngayon, malalaman po namin. Given that, ang tanong ngayon is, meron ako nakuhang letter from isang staff namin. Ma'am, hindi po ako papayag na magpapabawas sa payroll ko for SSS loan. And I called her up. Sabi ko, whether or not you approve is not important for me. 'Di ba? I don't need your permission because SSS already dictated that I should deduct. And if you want me to not deduct, you can go to SSS and ask them for a written report, parang written waiver that tells me that they waive that responsibility of me na magbayad on your behalf from your payroll. Ma'am, nakausap ko yung taga SSS, verbally sinabi sa akin pwede daw. Sabi ko, give me the name of that SSS officer and the branch. I will file a request. I will file a report and a complaint to SSS na tinuturuan ka ng SSS officer na yon na hindi magbayad ng loans. Sigurado 1,000% mawawalan siya ng trabaho. The staff knows their responsibility. Nagbabakasakali lang. And I was able to convince the staff to pay by telling her, look, ang taong nangungutang at hindi nagbabayad, ang tawag sa kanila magnanakaw. Sabi niya, ma'am, hindi naman ako magnanakaw. May intensyon naman akong magbayad. Kung may intensyon ka pala magbayad, nasaan na yung pera? May kapasidad kang magbayad. Alam ko kung magkano yung nade-deposit sa'yo. I know you can afford it. You just refuse to pay. So, wag na tayo maglokohan. Pag nangutang, kailangan magbayad. Pag hindi nagbabayad ng utang, tinatakbuhan at nagsisinungaling pa kasi ayaw magpakaltas, ang tawag sa'yo magnanakaw. And to answer the question, Coach Darwin?
Well, for me, as an HR professional, whatever situation our employees would have, you should always go back to your core values. In our core values is integrity and
Oh,
honesty. So you should
oh,
never allow yourself to be dictated by anyone, either an
mm,
employee, a manager, or even the president or the owner of the company to change
yeah,
something that you yourself is uncomfortable with. Kasi ibig sabihin, kasi you have to understand that the COE, given it's a document from the company, when you already give it to an external entity, it's already considered as a public document. And understand that your name will appear on it kasi ikaw yung nag-process. Or kung hindi man ikaw yung nag-process, ikaw yung pumirma. And if you allow yourself to be used
oh,
uh, for whatever reason, naawa ka, na-feel mo na kailangan talaga nung empleyado o nung kaibigan mo at pinagbigyan mo, for whatever reason, you are liable
mm,
legally because you're part of the crime. Kumbaga, you're an accessory to a criminal act, and that criminal act is fraud. In your own company, you can be escalated for fraud, and that's
terminable.
terminable offense.
Mm,
Outside the company, fraud can also be filed against you and also the person who filed for that particular loan. Kasi nga, falsification of documents yung ginawa
yes.
nyo.
Mm,
Diba? So, never ever put yourself in a position that would question your own
mm.
integrity.
Tsaka Coach
So,
Darwin,
yeah.
'di ba?
Mm-mm.
No matter how long your tenure, no matter
Mm-mm.
how high your salary or your position, once you commit fraud, regardless of where you are, the company already has the right to
To
terminate you
terminate.
for fraud
Correct. Correct.
following due process.
Correct.
Wala kang pag nahuli ka 1,000% matatanggal ka. And
Correct.
pag natanggal ka, dala-dala mo yang, syempre people will talk. Bakit ang tagal-tagal mo, 20 years, 30 years, tapos natanggal ka. Pag ito yung case mo, mahirap ka maghanap ng bagong trabaho kasi fraud yan.
Agree.
Sobrang, sobrang, ito yung pinakamasarap i-terminate. Kasi yung negligence of duty, you have to prove pa. Sobrang daming documentation. Pero fraud, just do it once, tapos. Walang second chance, di ba? Meron ka bang ganon, yung nagpalit tapos may second chance pa?
Wala. It's really it's really anything that is
Oh,
fraudulent, it's already a question of your integrity and your
yeah,
personality as an employee, as an HR professional, as a leader.
yeah,
So, never, kahit na magmakaawa pa yung employee na yan, explain
yeah,
mo sa kanila. Actually, maganda explanation ni Mentor Tina kanina. Kung malaki yung ilalagay ko ditong sweldo, malaki din yung gagawing sa'yo, yung monthly amortization mo, makakaya mo ba? Pag malaki ang amortization mo, sakaling makalusot to, makakaya mo ba? Ganun din, cycle uli, manghihiram ka uli ng pera sa iba. 'Di ba? So hindi siya matatapos. At something that you started with a lie would always end negatively in
we do have
anything,
comments.
relationships, in anything in life. Yes.
We do have comments. Sabi ni Anthony Villarina, no, that's fraud daw talaga. Kailangan yung totoo lang. Rosemary Gale said, you nailed it po, Coach Darwin. Integrity is very important sa role as a HR kasi siya yung role model ng company. Never compromise our values. However, banks or companies with loan facilities should go for net income or take-home pay, not only the gross salary. Tenure and position title. Focusing on COE isn't the sole basis to approve any loans, just my thought. Tsaka ang pag-ibig, by the way ha, pag mas mataas ang sahod mo, mas mataas ang interest.
Mm,
So
agree.
if you're a minimum wage worker, you pay less interest and penalty.
Actually,
Cool kaya yan
Tin,
eh. Mas maganda nga mas
agree.
mababa sahod eh. Kasi mas mababa
Agree.
talaga yung charge lang interest. Sobrang laking difference. Lalo na if it's millions.
Agree. Pero to mga ka-HR, for those HR professionals who are listening right now, this is not even for a loan application. This
Mm,
particular question will be for everything. I
mm,
remember way back in my previous life, I had a manager who's transitioning to another company. And one of the requirements of the company that he is going to is that company is asking for a copy of payslip and COE.
mm,
And and surprisingly, he
mm,
declared a different salary that he's
mm,
getting from us to that particular company. So, syempre, kailangan na niyang pangatawanan. So,
mm,
kinausap niya ako, sabi niya, Sir, baka naman po pwede, in-explain niya sa akin, Sir, baka naman po pwedeng sa COE ko, ito yung ilagay mong salary ko, tapos baka sa payslip pwedeng pakiusapan si payroll na ito yung i-reflect na
mm,
na salary ko. Syempre, hindi po pwede, di ba? Kasi
mm,
nga, end of the day, ang sabi ko nga sa kanya, alam mo kung ginawa mo yan,
mm,
nang hindi ka pa nag-resign, malamang terminate kita. Kasi you're
mm,
asking me to lie in your behalf.
mm,
Diba? So that's something that it's not only on in loan applications, in everything that you do, in every documents that as an HR professional you sign, you review, you audit, make sure that you see it as a reflection of who you are as a person. If you approve something, make sure that you read, audit before you approve. Kasi anything that sabi nga, di ba, anything that you expect, you inspect. Because if you don't inspect, whatever happens at the end of the day, it's your responsibility.
mm,
So just make sure that don't compromise. Don't compromise your ethics. Don't compromise your values. Whatever situation that your employees, how close or how tenured, how senior that particular person is, if you're not, if you yourself knows that this is wrong, tell that person no, because it's fraudulent. Okay?
okay?
That's it. Baka may iba pang mga
Yun
sharing.
na, yun na. Mm.
Okay.
Announcement.
Sige. Let's go to our updates coming from the Department of Labor and Employment. This is actually coming from Dole NCR. So, according to Delhi on NCR, this is a reminder for everyone. If you're filing for a compliance order, ito yung mga nagpa-file ng complaint. If you're filing for a complaint, make sure that you have your case number and reference number, the name of the establishment that you are complaining, and also the list of compliances that particular company has violated. Now, if you are appealing for a certain result, an order from Dole, make sure that you have your memorandum of appeal ready and also be ready for a bond. Kasi hihingan kayo ng bond hanggang matapos yung investigation no, sa particular case or kung ano man yung kailangang i-review ng Dole. So these are just a checklist for compliance order. Again, case number and reference number, name of establishment, list of compliances. Of course, you need to have your compliance cover letter and a copy of order. This is addressed to the regional director. This is for all compliance order. Now, for checklist of appeal, you have to have a copy of the memorandum of appeal and be ready to pay for a bond. Okay? Next is that according to SSS, there's a mandatory online filing of retirement claims for self-employed members age 60 to 64 starting July 1st. So, as per the president of SSS, President and CEO Michael Regino, um, everyone who is considered as self-employed
Mm.
members of SSS that is age 60 to 64 already prior to the retirement age should already file a retirement claim in the SSS portal. So this is addition to all employee members, voluntary members, land-based overseas Filipino workers members, and of course, self-employed members age 65 years old and above at the time of retirement who were required to fill online effective July 2020. So, kung hindi pa po kayo nakakapag-file online if you're already age 60 to 64 and you're about to expect that you'll be retiring by the age of 65, which is the mandatory retirement age, please make sure that you update and apply at SSS system. The retirement benefit, by the way, that is given by SSS is a cash benefit granted to all its members as long as you are you are being deducted for SSS or you're paying as a voluntary member of SSS and you can no longer work due to old age or has reached the prescribed retirement age, which is 65 years old in the Philippines. So, it can be in a form of a monthly pension, pwede po siyang gawing monthly pension, at paid po siya 120 monthly contributions. And para nga maka-avail dito, kailangan meron kayong 120 monthly contributions prior to the semester of retirement. Or you can also pay a lump sum for those who have paid less than 120 contributions. Sabihin natin, nagkaroon po kayo ng gap in your working period. At tapos yung contribution nyo sa SSS, wala pa palang 120 contributions. Tapos malapit na po kayong mag-retire. Alam nyo po, pwede nyo pa pumahabol yun kasi pumapayag po ang SSS ng lump sum payment for the contributions para po pag nag-retire kayo, eligible na po kayo para sa pension ng SSS. So the qualifying conditions for the retirement benefit can be accessed at the SSS website, that's www.sss.gov.ph, and the guidelines and policies on the online filing of benefit claims is done through the MySSS portal. Then another reminder, this is for the extension of the ACOP, which is only up to June 30. According again to President and CEO Regino, compliance for the annual confirmation of pensioners. Ito po yung proof na kayo po ay pensioner, na buhay pa po kayo or kayo po ay ang designated uh, guardian or dependent ng isang pensioner. So, this is required for survivor pensioners or pensioners that would be getting their benefit pension. Those who are who has total disability, those who are guardians or dependents, and those retired pensioners who lived abroad. So you need to make sure that you update your ACOP through SSS. And this is only up to June 30th, 2022. In just a few days, it will uh, be over. So make sure that you comply with this. Now, going to another SSS news, I'll give it to Mentor Tina.
All right, the SSS Housing Loan Penalty Condonation Program is still in force and it is only until June 30, 2022. That's next week. So it gives a final chance for all housing loan borrowers with past due housing loan obligations to fully pay, update, and avail of an affordable payment scheme to avoid the foreclosure of their mortgage property. Remember, if it is foreclosed, lahat po na nahulog ninyo, bye-bye na po. So make sure that you are well updated and hindi palalampasan ang pagbabayad ng housing loan ninyo. As we've mentioned kanina, what you loan, you must pay. If you do not pay, there are consequences. And if you have a housing loan and you do not pay, you lose the house that you've been paying for so many years. The HLPCP can be availed either through full payment of the loan or through a 25% down payment of the total outstanding balance excluding penalties. So this is very good. So if matagal na po kayong hindi nagbabayad, you need to only pay 25% of the total outstanding balance. That's principal plus interest without the penalties. And by restructuring the 75% to be paid on 24-month or 2-year equal installments. Who are the covered borrowers qualified for condonations? Well, these are all housing loan borrowers, duly designated successors or heirs with past due housing loan obligations, whether or not the original or previously restructured terms have already been expired. That's good news. Or housing loan borrowers whose property have been foreclosed and undergone sheriff auction sale with SSS as the winning bidder. And the certificate of sale have not yet been registered under the following SSS housing loan program. Wag niyong palampasin, wag niyong hindi pansinin, kasi if you don't avail of this, sayang talaga po lahat ng nahulog po ninyo kasi hindi po ninyo makukuha yung pera na yon. Next slide. Who are those available to apply for the program? We've already mentioned all housing loan borrowers with past due housing loan obligations. The heirs can also pay. Okay, so even if namatay na po yung member, pwede pa po yung next in line. And under condonation with restructuring, the housing loan account must not be expired with at least one remaining month of the original or previously restructured loan term. Payment terms, again, could be full payment or 25% and 75%. Very reasonable kasi if you do not pay, hindi kayo naghanap ng paraan, bye-bye na po talaga yung ating bahay. Okay? Next slide. With that, with PhilHealth naman, this is a kind reminder that June is Dengue Awareness Month. Nakakamatay po ang dengue. So, if you or your family have symptoms, sagot ka ng SSS. Severe dengue is 16,000 from your hospital bill. Regular dengue is 10,000. So it's not really bad given that it's only 4% of our 2% actually of our salary na binabawasan ng mga kumpanya for our PhilHealth. So magreklamo tayo against PhilHealth but we cannot really deny the fact na ang laki talaga ng savings pag nagkasakit ka. Okay? Next
Agree.
slide please. The government wants to remind us that it's very easy to prevent dengue. Linisin lang po ang lugar na maaring bigyan ng where the lamoks are. You have to make sure that you are self-protected by using mosquito repellents and to wear clothes that protect your skin. And then if you do exhibit symptoms, huwag po matakot na maghanap ng tulong kasi if ever dengue po ay nakakamatay. Next slide.
Okay, this is really more for words from our sponsors. So, just a reminder, El Puerto Marina Beach Resort and Vacation Club, who have resorts or who has resorts in Pangasinan, Boracay, and Palawan, is a partner of the Philippines HR Group and also of the HR Cafe, Usapang Trabaho, Buhay, Iba Pa. If you are a member of the Philippines HR Group, just reach out to the FB page of El Puerto Marina Beach Resort and Vacation Club. Tell them, inform them that you are a member and uh, you will be given exclusive discounts and privileges because you are a member of the Philippines HR Group. They are our partners. And again, they have resorts and vacation clubs in Boracay, in Pangasinan, and also in Palawan. Now, for if you are looking for a postpaid or a prepaid healthcare card, MaxiCare has launched MaxiCare Prima. The MaxiCare Prima has two types: MaxiCare Prima Silver. These are for individuals up to 59 years of age, and MaxiCare Prima Gold. These are for seniors 60 years of age and above. These are prepaid cards where your employees, your family members can use for consultations and any medical needs that you might have. So we encourage you to check Maxicare Premier Silver and Maxicare Prima Gold. You can check them at www.shop.maxicare.com.ph. Also, a reminder, the ASEAN HR Summit, initially it was scheduled, it was supposed to be held at Okada, but there was an announcement recently that it will now be staged at the Shangri-La Fort Manila this coming August 1 and August 2. The ASEAN HR Summit is presented by Harper and Hill and HR Tech 500. The theme for this year is the human resource transformative changes, agile, aligned, and accelerated. Members of the Philippines HR Group, since we are a community partner, automatically gets 15% discount when you register for the ASEAN HR Summit. So don't miss this chance to meet old colleagues and meet new ones at this annual gathering of HR leaders and HR professionals. Please book your seat now. You can reach out to Chris at harperandhill.com or marketing.harperandhill at outlook.com. You can also call them or SMS to their mobile 0961-8133-245 or check their website www.aseanhrsummit.com. Yourself, I mean, I will be one of the speakers of this ASEAN HR Summit, so I'll see you there. And there are also members of the Philippines HR Group who will be present as speakers for this ASEAN HR Summit. So makita-kita po tayo. Also, uh, we're excited to announce to you that, of course, through our partnership with People Matters, we are looking forward for the upcoming Tech HR Southeast Asia Conference. This will be held on August 25 and 26, 2022, this year at the Marina Bay Sands Hotel in Singapore. So be one of the 100 HR leaders from the Philippines who will be given a free VIP pass. And this VIP pass is actually worth $499. This is to give you an opportunity to attend a 2-day Tech HR conference. As mentioned, it will be held at Marina Bay Sands Resorts in Singapore. This is brought to you by the Philippines HR Group in partnership with People Matters. And the details, of course, the sign up page can be found at the FB group page and also the LinkedIn page of the Philippines HR Group. We encourage you to attend because this is the largest gathering of HR leaders in Southeast Asia. And there are hundreds of well known HR leaders and thought leaders who will be part of the roster of speakers for the upcoming Tech HR Southeast Asia. Actually, for the Philippines, you can expect Ivy Livorha and myself also to be there, and we'll be speaking at the Tech HR Summit. Now, another exclusive for the Philippines HR Group, eShield is our partner. So if your company is looking for a healthcare management program, eShield is giving away 15% exclusive discount for all members of the Philippines HR Group or companies that has members of the Philippines HR Group. You just have to register at the eShield website www.shield.me.ph HR. eShield is a partner of the Philippines HR Group and the HR Cafe to promote a healthy lifestyle to your company's employees. So, what will you get? You will be getting a wearable. It's looks like a watch or a Fitbit, and this particular device will monitor your heart rate, your what do you call this? Not only your heart rate, your sleep, your uh, e- even your GPS. I mean, where your employees are, you can also monitor them. You can monitor also how many steps do they exercise on a daily basis. A lot more. There is a dashboard that HR professionals can actually see, and that can monitor your employees to ensure that they are always practicing a healthy lifestyle. And again, to know more about eShield, just go to www.shield.me. Okay? Now, if you have any questions about the Philippines HR Group Facebook or the Philippines HR Group LinkedIn page, please post it at our main page. And also, we encourage you to like the FB page of the HR Cafe Usapang Trabaho, Buhay, Iba Pa. Uh, we have more than 7,000 likers right now in our HR Cafe FB page. Mind you, all of the previous episodes, all of the 96 plus episodes of the HR Cafe over the past 2 years is there. Even the HR learning programs of the Philippines HR Group is there. You can watch it. We're also in YouTube. You can access the free learnings at the Philippines HR YouTube page. And if your company would like to be a sponsor of the programs and activities of the Philippines HR Group and also the HR Cafe, please reach out to any of our mentors, Mentors Tina, Mentor Shona, Mentor Burns, and yours truly. I'm Coach Darwin, and you can send us an email at darwinrivers@yahoo.com. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when we started the program, we have an international speaker guest for today, and she is no other than Ester Martinez. Now, to properly to properly uh, introduce Esther, let me just read to you her uh, what do you call this? Her background. Esther Martinez is a CEO and editor in chief of People Matters. And as you know, People Matters have been a partner of the Philippines HR Group for, I think, more than 3, 4 years already. So Esther Martinez is the CEO of People Matters, the fastest growing community of CHRO and business leaders committed to the advancement of talent and work practices for sustainable business impact. In 2009, upon sensing the need for a platform to deliberate talent management, leadership, and hold critical insights on people and future of work for C-suite audiences, Esther founded People Matters and rapidly grew it to become one of the few successes in independent publishing and a brand synonymous to knowledge and digital innovation in people and work tech space. And today, the brand is named for the con with not just in India, but also globally with a special focus in Southeast Asia. A people's person at heart, Esther holds a postgraduate degree in human resource management from EADA in Spain and a master's of business administration from Indian School of Business in Hyderabad. With more than 15 years of experience in human resource, Esther has a wealth of knowledge in the areas of talent, learning and development, and work tech. Until 2008, she has worked as a professional manager with a host of blue chip companies such as Hewlett Packard and Tata Consultancy, both in India and of the UK. A much sought after speaker. That's why we're very proud to have her in today's episode of the HR Cafe. Um, Esther was recognized as a top influencer on employee engagement by the Employee Engagement Awards and a top influencer in HR technology by Recruiting Daily. Esther was also featured in the 2016 and 2018 LinkedIn Top Voices list, which ranked top writers of LinkedIn for the year. She's also a renowned TEDx speaker and was nominated for a Global Employee Engagement Influencers Award in 2007. Our dear audience, we're very humbled and happy and proud to introduce to you the CEO of People Matters, our partner, Miss Esther Martinez. Hi, Esther.
Hi Darwin and hi Christina. Hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be with all of you.
All
Okay,
right.
all right. Esther, we'll give you enough time, so let you just share your presentation. Correct?
There's a
There's
bit
a
of an
bit of an
echo.
echo.
On my
Is
side,
it
Is it
yes.
yes.
is it?
Yes.
Oh, I don't have a headphones with me. Is it? Maybe.
I
Yeah, go
what
ahead.
What we
Christina.
can do
is
is
that
that
maybe from
maybe
your
from your
side, if
side, if
on
on
question and
question and question
answers,
answers,
you
you
can
can
mute,
mute,
and
and
then when you
then when you
answer, you
answer, you
answer, and then
answer,
we
and then
mute.
we mute.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Esther,
So
are you seeing your presentation now?
yes, I am.
Okay,
Yes, I
okay.
am.
We'll
So
give it a shot.
if when I speak, if both of you are muted, is it still echoing?
Yes, you have
Yes,
to
you
be
have to be
muted
muted
from your
from
end.
your end.
So when I speak, is it still echoing? I'm just conscious about everyone's experience. Just put it on the private chat if it's echoing or if it's fine. Just give me a sign on the private chat. It's fine. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Darwin. Thank you very much, Tina, as well. Great. So I'm very excited to be here with all of you this afternoon. It's early morning for me. I'm currently logging in from Barcelona in Spain. So when I was telling my kids that I have a session tomorrow, and they were like, but Sunday at 9 o'clock, how come you have a session in the morning so early? And I said, well, it is not 9 o'clock in Philippines. It's much later in the day. And I want to congratulate you for the great work that you're doing at Philippines HR Group. Specifically, congratulate you for the grand success of the HR Cafe. I think just getting together as a community, supporting each other, and I think the resilience and the grit that this group has shown during the pandemic has been fantastic. So congratulations for the great work. Special thanks, of course, to Darwin and Tina and the complete team. I'm always amazed how you guys are able to do that over and above your full-time roles, but it's really a fantastic volunteering work that you're doing, how it's contributing to the community. So congratulations for that, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to be associated with you guys. All right, so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about rethinking what's possible. Specifically, we're going to be talking about some of the key trends that have accelerated after the pandemic. And rethinking what's possible is the theme of the People Matters TechHR 2022. And Darwin was sharing with all of you that we have the privilege to partner with the Philippines HR Group to bring a group of HR leaders to Singapore. And I'm looking forward to welcoming you face to face when we are there in Marina Bay. And today, the session is going to have 3 parts. We're going to talk about rethinking what's possible, specifically in the context of 2 sides. One is how technology is converging, which is one of the main areas of today's presentation. And we're going to get a outside-in perspective of how technology and technology evolution is creating a fast growing opportunities for us to rethink what's possible. So that's one part of the presentation. The second part of the presentation is going to be more of an inside out perspective. What is it that we need to change as HR professionals in our mindset to really be able to see what's possible and rethink what's possible? So we're going to take an outside-in perspective for what are the possibilities and how do I leverage them. And we're going to take an inside-out perspective. What is it that I need to change in my mindset to be able to capture those opportunities? We're going to also be talking about a little bit about TechHR. Darwin requested me to share a little bit more about TechHR, this year's agenda, what we aim to achieve. So then you get a little bit more visibility about the conference, and that we will do at the end as well. So feel free to use the chat for reflections, for questions. I am seeing Chris was saying that it's fine. Maureen, I can see that it's fine. And Mary, thank you for saying good afternoon. I can see what you're putting in the comments page. So please feel free to keep sharing reflections or things that you agree, things that you disagree, maybe questions, because we're going to be taking them as we go along. Yeah, we're going to make it a little bit interactive that way. Thank you, Trisha, as well. All right, so I'm going to start inviting you to use the chat and reflect. So when I'm talking about rethinking what's possible, and before that, is my accent easy to understand? Is my speed, am I speaking too fast, too slow? Is it, I'm conscious about the fact that I have a very strong Spanish and Indian accent with my English. So is it clear? Is it the pace is good? Give me some feedback on the chat itself, so I know that everyone is more or less able to follow me. Clear? All right. Awesome. And if I'm going too fast, please do let me know as well, and I'll try to slow down a little bit. All right. So thank you, Darwin. Thank you, Mirna, for your input. So I'm going to start by inviting you to reflect. Reflect on the chat again. When we're talking about rethinking what's possible, I'm inviting you to think about the mindset of possibilities. So when you think about mindset of possibilities, what are some of the feelings associated with it? Some of the feelings when you think about the mindset of possibilities, what's ahead of us, we have a host of opportunities, we have a host of possibilities as HR professionals, is, in my view, a great opportunity for us as HR leaders to really change the way organizations look at people and work. So when I'm inviting you to think about this mindset of possibilities, what are some of the feelings associated? What are some of those emotions that come to your mind? And if I can have one or two of them on the chat, what would be the feelings or emotions associated with the invitation of the mindset of possibilities? What would that be? Just gonna give you 5 seconds to think about what are those emotions, what are those feelings, those emotions. And I can see Darwin's answer already. I'm gonna wait for one or two more. Maybe Trisha, Mirna, Krish. What would be those emotions? When I'm inviting you to say, okay, visit yourself or travel to that mindset of possibilities, what are some of the emotions that come to your mind? All right. So we have growth as one of the emotions. We have wandering, which is a positive feeling. We have excitement, but we also have fear, right? It's so interesting. So when we're talking about the mindset of possibilities, we have some of those very positive feelings, which is, excitement, wonder, growth, limitless. But we also some of those feelings that are, a little bit worrisome, which is being scared or being fearful. And that's so beautiful, because I think that's the reality of when we think about possibilities. We always have that positive opportunity, but also the fear of failure, that being scared about the unknown. And that's what we're going to be reflecting on today. So you can see this image on your screen right now, and you must be wondering, what is this about? And I'm going to start with the story of how do we realize a realization of the limitless. And I think one of you mentioned about limitless. Now, this is the story of the inventor of the chess game. So I don't know if you know this story, but the legend says that this is a story. The inventor of the chess game went to his patron and he showed the invention to him. At this case, he was one king, and his patron was absolutely delighted. He said, wow, this is an outstanding game that you have invented, and I'm so delighted that I'm going to offer you any reward that you wish to have, anything in this world. So the inventor thought about, okay, I can get anything that I want. So he told the patron that he wanted as much rice as 1 grain of rice to double in each square of the 64 squares in the chessboard. So just as you can imagine, you can go to the next slide, Tina or Darwin. As you can imagine, if you put 1 grain of rice, just imagine on the first square, then it doubles to 2, then it doubles to 4 in the third square, and so on and so forth until you reach the 64 squares of the chessboard. Now, the king, the patron, was very estranged because he felt that the man was really a fool, because why would he ask for such a silly thing when he could have asked for anything in the world? But little he knew that he had actually granted the wish without realizing that the amount of rice he had committed was 18 million trillion grains of rice. And I really have no clue how much rice is that, but for you to visualize, it's actually 1,000 times more rice than exists today in the world. And it's a mountain of rice equivalent as big as the Mount Everest. So you just imagine the Mount Everest, a rice mountain as big as the Mount Everest, and that's what he had committed. Now, of course, the king went bankrupt. He lost everything, and he really never realized that he had made the biggest mistake in his life. He lost everything that he had, and of course, that's a legend. But the legend is interesting, and I think that's my invitation to all of you to reflect about this concept of exponential growth. When we think about exponential growth, and we've been talking about exponential growth even before the pandemic, and the story just helps us understand how difficult it is for our own mind to comprehend exponential growth intuitively. So when we talk about technology growing at an exponential rate, or when we talk about access to computing power growing at exponential rate, when we talk about AI and automation growing at exponential rate, our mind does not understand intuitively what it means. And this story of this king just showed us that he could not comprehend what he was committing. Now, that's my invitation to all of you. There is a lot of information about trends. There is a lot of information about shifts in technology, how it's impacting our lives. But remember that our human brain, our human intuition cannot handle exponential growth very well. So it has to be very, very intentional. When people talk to us and say that this is growing exponentially, I would invite you to stop and say, what does that really mean? Because your human mind will not automatically really truly understand what it means. Yeah, and that's my invitation with this first story. Now, what are some of those shifts that are growing exponentially? And I'm going to take you through some of them. Some of them are a little futuristic, but I'm inviting you to look at them with that mindset of exponential growth. They're futuristic, they're not yet here, but they're going to be here much faster than we think. Yeah, and that's my invitation today, to be open with this exponential mind that we learn in this story. So if you go to the next slide, Trina, please. Yeah. So one of those trends is what we've been hearing about Web 3.0, and one of them is the metaverse. Co-founder Bill Gates, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, believes that in another year, we will all be attending meetings in our own avatars. And we're talking about, 12 to 14 to 16 months from today. Today, there are more children playing Fortnite, which is a game online, than playing basketball and football combined around the world. So that's what's happening with our children. They're already playing a lot more in the metaverse than they're playing in the physical world. And here, the image that you can see here is a 9-minute digital concert from Travis Scott. He's one of American rappers. Now, he made $20 million in 9-minute digital concert, which is 20 times more than what he used to make in a physical concert. So in a 9-minute concert in the metaverse, he was able to generate 20 times more revenue than what he had done during 2018, 2019. He had generated around $53 million in a 56-stop concert. So he had to do 56 stops to generate almost $54 million. In one show of 9 minutes, he was able to generate $20 million itself in merchandising and tickets and so on and so forth. And that's the commercial power, the economic power of the metaverse. Now, I'm inviting you, as I take you through all these technologies, I'm inviting you to think, what will it mean to me? What will it mean to, and there's a lot of companies that are already using the metaverse for onboarding, for hosting meetings, to host parties, and a lot of organizations are experimenting with using the metaverse in their hybrid format. Now, what will it mean to each one of you? For some of us, this sounds like science fiction. For some of us, we are already playing a little bit with it. For some of us, we may be hearing it from the first time. Now, my invitation, again, with the mindset of exponential growth, this is a very, very big trend, which is going to affect the way we live, but it's also going to affect the way we manage our employees. So inviting you to think about, what will it mean to my organization? If we go to the next slide, I'm also going to invite you to think about one more Web 3.0 technology, which is, if you go to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you so much. The next, my invitation is also to think about crypto, NFTs. A lot of those assets are now moving digital. And many of you know crypto and NFTs more from the use case of financial markets, blockchain, and so on and so forth. Currencies, really, is the way we have seen blockchain. But now blockchain technology is being used for multiple other use cases. And in this particular case, I'm showing you digital collectives. Digital collectives are a way for us to all understand, is a way to guarantee proof of ownership or proof of origination. So if I own the NFT, it's like owning the property, how would I say, the property ownership proof, right? And for you to understand, is like the difference in the physical world is the difference between owning the original Mona Lisa painting or owning just the poster that you bought in the Museum of Louvre when you exit. You know, all of us can have a poster of the Mona Lisa, but only one owner can own the real original Mona Lisa. And that's what NFTs in the digital world are doing. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples that you see on the screen. One is an example of a digital piece of art. This is purely digital. It doesn't exist in the physical world. And you see it on the right side of your screen. This digital piece of artwork is called 5,000 Days. It was sold in 2020. And this is an artist that created a digital artwork every day for 5,000 days. He combined all of this in one NFT, and he actually sold that NFT in Christie's for $69 million. And this is a digital art piece. Yeah. So for the first time, there was a digital art piece that was sold in Christie's for more than $69 million. And for you to understand, this is like almost like owning BMWs or Rolexes in our time. I think the new generation are looking at these digital flexes as a way to differentiate themselves socially. So what would that mean to us in terms of our compensation structures, in terms of the way we attract employees in the future? And again, for many of us, this is sounding like science fiction. Like, what is Esther talking about? This is like, I have no clue what she's saying. For some of you, you may be a little bit more ahead and already fine-tuned with digital flexes and what these NFTs mean. This is just an invitation to tell you that these are things already happening. On the right side, you see another example. This is actually the Bored Ape Yacht Club. There are 10,000 little images. So you see those 6 monkey cartoons. There are 10,000 of those Now, these are digital art pieces being sold individually. Now, it's so trending and so happening that people are paying up to $2.8 million to own one of those little monkeys NFTs. Now, for you and me, it may sound a little weird that people are willing to spend so much money, $2.8 million, in just owning one image. Now, that is because that image is owned to me NFT, which means I am the one who own it and only me, and that's today the digital flex. So it's more valuable to own this, ape and put it in my social profile picture than maybe owning, a physical Rolex or a physical BMW or a yacht or whatever someone will fancy. So that's the second trend. That when we think about NFTs, it's not, or blockchain, it's not just about financial use cases, but it's also how this has been used to prove ownership. Now, this is digital flexes, but it's also to prove ownership of projects, maybe copyrights, prove ownership of skills. Tomorrow, if I have a skill and I have a certification program, then that program can also be an NFT, which basically means I have approved that graduation, post-graduation or skill, and I have it and I can prove it with my NFT. So these are all use cases of how decentralized markets can really help us on proof of ownership. Yeah. So any questions, feel free to keep putting them on the comments. I know that these are topics that are a little more futuristic, and that was the invitation that I had with Darwin to say, let's bring some outside-in perspective and let's bring some novelty to this group today. So I know I'm pushing you a little bit to think future, but I think that's what's important for us to know what's coming. All right, a little small trivia. If you go to the next slide, just as a joke, I have made my own NFT. So this is my little NFT, which I have designed. I've got somebody to design it, and it's owned by me, and it's in my MetaMask wallet. So I really don't think nobody ever will pay $2.8 million to own this. But the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because as leaders, we need to play with these things. We need to experiment with these things. So for me, it was about creating my own design, getting it created, getting minted. It's safe in its NFT. I own it, and I can prove the ownership because it's in my MetaMask wallet. The same way that somebody else can prove that they own the Mona Lisa because they have the ownership paper, right, in the physical world. So I have the ownership in my digital wallet, right? So just for you to know that you can own your own profile picture in NFT as well as a proof of ownership. All right, so if we go to the next slide, go ahead. Yes. So this is just an invitation for you to think about how 2020, these technologies were already existing before the pandemic. And some of them have been existing even before 2000s. Now, what's happening now is because of the pandemic, those are converging exponentially. And remember the word exponentially. Our brain does not understand what exponential growth is. Remember the story of the chessboard game. So when we are saying they're converging exponentially, it means they're converging much, much faster than what our brain can comprehend intuitively. Yeah. Now, what would that mean to us? So whether we're talking about 3D printing, whether we're talking about 5G, we're talking about artificial intelligence, and Darwin was putting that on the chat before we started. We're talking virtual reality, we're talking about blockchain. All of these are converging into opportunities. What does it mean to us? It means that the way we work, the way we meet, the way we onboard people, the way we train people now can be done very differently. Now, how you may do it, right? And that's the invitation for you as HR leader to be ahead of the rest of your leadership team to really understand how do I leverage this conversion of technologies. What will it mean in terms of, as we were discussing, how do I use NFTs to actually prove skills that I acquired or prove that people have worked in a particular project? Or how do I use that to incentivize people with digital flexes? Will it mean anything in in my organization? How do I use metaverse for your training? How do I use metaverse for onboarding? US Army has been using it for many, many years to train people to be in the battlefield, right? So how do you use that in your organization? And that's my invitation from the outside in perspective. So that's the first part of the presentation. Just to give you an overview about some of those technologies that are growing and converging exponentially. And my invitation would be, what does that mean to me? Where do I need to start exploring? Where do I need to start experimenting some of those technologies? All right, so that's the first part. Now, the second part I'm going to invite you to do is to think about, yes, those technologies may be happening, but how do I ready my mindset to be able to capture those opportunities? But before I go to the second part, any comments, any questions on the chat, happy to take as well. Any inputs? Are we going good? Is the flow good? Just pausing. We're good. All right. Thank you, Darwin. All right. So feel free to keep pausing me for any questions or any comments on the chat, because I'm looking at the chat as we go along. So feel free to use the chat to communicate with me, because I can't see any of you. I can only see the chat. All right. So let's go to the second part of the reflection today, which is we have seen the outside in perspective. And now we're going to look at the inside out perspective. And here I'm going to again tell you a story. What you can see here is a typical eye test. Now, on the chat, and here everyone needs to participate on this, so it's mandatory participation on the chat. How many of you have ever done an eye test? Have gone to check your eyesight and have done an eye test? So if you have done an eye test, just put yes on the comments box. All right? I'm going to wait because everyone has to participate on this one. So you can say me, or you can say yes, or you can give me an emoticon. And I'm going to wait for all of you. All right? I can see Anne, Darwin, Trisha, some colleagues, I can't see your name, but Carmelita, Connie. I'm going to wait for a little more. Chris, thank you. Connie as well. Let's wait for everyone. I just want to make sure everyone has done an eye test, because otherwise you will not get this story. This story is required, and I think for the age group, probably all of us have done an eye test. All right. Cha has also done an eye test. All right. Anybody who's not done an eye test, please also put it in the chat. Say no. It'll be really awesome to get to know you. All right. Wonderful. So all of us have done an eye test. Fantastic. Now, this story is actually from Ellen Langer. She's a Harvard business professor. And she asked this question: what will happen if I change the outlook? What will happen if I change the outlook? So if you go to the next slide, Trina or Darwin, she asked this question, no? If I change the outlook, what will happen? Now, what does that mean? If you go to the next slide, she said, well, if I change the outlook, go to the next one for a minute. If I change the outlook and I reverse, click on the next one, please. If I reverse the letters, click on next, Tina. Yes. What happens if I reverse it? Now, again, I'm going to invite you on the chat to say, do you think the result of the eye test will be the same? So I go and do an eye test and they show me the letters from bigger to small or from small to big. It should be the same, right? Now, do you think it's the same? If yes, then say yes, it should be the same. If you think it's not the same, that there'll be a change in the way I'm able to see, then says it will be different. So you say it will be the same or it will be different. Very quickly on the chat, do you think it's going to be the same if I change the way that I show you the letters, or it's going to be different? All right, so we have some same. Let's wait for Cha, Chris, Connie, Carmelita, Trisha, and do you think it's going to be the same? Do you think it's going to be different? We have some people saying it's different. Why will it be different? It's a physical thing. What I can see, I can see. But Trisha is saying it's going to be different. Darwin is saying it's going to be the same. Let's wait for everyone. What do you think? Come on. You think it's going to be different or you think it's going to be the same? Another 5 seconds. Come on. Same. All right. So we have a tie right now. Same, same, same. So we have more colleagues who are thinking it's going to be same, but we have some that think it's going to be different, right? Well, it should be the same because finally what you can see is what you can see. And I so agree with all of you who said it should be the same. But the reality is that it was different. It was different because what Ellen was able to prove is that when I'm seeing the letters, the way you're seeing them on the screen right now, I start with the mindset of scarcity. I can see the letters. So go back, Darwin, to the previous slide. Second, the way we normally see the eye test is we start with the bigger letters. And because we start with the bigger letters, the mindset that comes in our mind is that at some point I won't be able to see. So we enter the eye test with a mindset of limitation. We enter the eye test with a mindset that, oh, I can see the Z, U, and D very well, but at some point I know I won't be able to see. And that's a very different mindset than the next one. If you go to the slide that shows the opposite, yes. Now this is a mindset when we start with the small letters, none of us can see that letter, that small letter. We can't see it. But you know at some point you'll be able to see. So the difference between both is the first eye test that I showed you is a mindset of scarcity. It's a mindset of limitation. It's a mindset that, oh, at some point I won't be able to see, versus this test and that proof that people were able to see more, which is so weird, right? People were able to see more when they did the test in this way. In this way, I enter the test and I know I can't read the first line, I can't read the second line, I can't read the third line. Oh, the fourth line I start to see, I start to be able to read. So I enter this test with a mindset of possibilities, right? So what does this mean to us? It means that when we are looking at all these technologies, at all these changes around us, we can see them with a mindset of, I won't be able to understand it, or we can see it with a mindset of, I can't understand everything, but I will be able to understand it as I embrace and experiment more and more. So what this little experiment and what Ellen was able to prove, if you go to the next slide, is that a lot of those limits that we accept are artificial. And with the example of the eye test, we enter the eye test saying, I won't be able to see. So that's a limit that I have set up in my brain, and that limit is artificial. It's not real. And because I've set up this limit in my own mind, that is limiting me. It's limiting my ability to actually see more. Yeah. Now, my invitation here is, her reflection was and this is not one study. They've done multiple studies on this, and they've done multiple studies in different contexts, and they have been able to prove that we accept a lot of those limits artificially, and we need not accept them. And what she invites us to differentiate is there are things that are indeterminate. We don't know, things that are unknown. So things that are unknown, we normally think that they are not controllable. But things that are unknown doesn't mean that they are not controllable. It just means that I don't know them yet. But that doesn't mean I can't control them, right? And that's my second invitation. When we embrace this mindset of possibilities, I invite you to embrace it with the eye test, that the second eye test, which means I may not know everything, I may not even understand, but I will be able to understand it, as opposed to, well, I won't be able to understand it. This is beyond me. I belong to a different generation, or in my industry, this doesn't happen, or in my country, this doesn't happen, or in my town, this doesn't happen. And that's the invitation, that limits that we accept are artificial and they're not real. All right, so that's what I had to share with you, these two stories with an opportunity to reflect about an outside in perspective and things that are happening in the technology world, and they're converging exponentially, with my invitation that exponentially is a very important keyword we must remember. And the second is the invitation to say, well, all of those things that are happening are beyond your ability to comprehend. And do not set up limits that are artificial, because everyone can experiment and have access to the power of these technologies in your own industry, in your own organization. So I'm going to pause again for any comments, any questions on the chat. And now I'm going to move to invite you to talk, to share a little bit more about TechHR and how in TechHR we picked up some of those trends, and we're going to spend a full 1.5 days going deeper in some of those topics. So thank you, Darwin, for your comment. And if there's no questions, then I'm gonna invite, maybe I will share my screen, Darwin, if you want, because I will share a little bit about TechHR. See if I can do it myself. Slides, share, okay. Okay, let me see if we can see my screen. Chrome tab. All right. Awesome. Okay. Just quick check. You can see my screen? Yeah? Everyone? You can see my screen of TechHR Singapore? Just before I start. Yeah? Can you guys see my screen with the brochure? Yes. Oh, thank you, Carmelita. Thank you so much. And I'm going to also post the TechHR link. I'm putting it in the private chat. Let me see if I can maximize, because this is not downloaded. And it's that I'm not going to take you through everything, so you don't need to worry too much. And in the private chat, I've posted the link so you can download it yourself. This is a brochure. It's publicly available. Just hold for a minute, please. All right, apologies, my son was calling me. All right, so I've put the link in the private chat. If I can request Tina or Darwin to please put it on the public chat. And then, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, so let me take you through it. Don't worry too much if you can't read everything, because I'm just going to take you through some of the highlights of the conference. This conference is on 25th and 26th. So 25th is at Marina Bay. It's a full day conference. 26th is when we're going to invite you to visit some of the companies in Singapore. And we're going to take you through what we call the TechHR study tour. So we're going to get the opportunity to go and visit some companies in Singapore. And then we've organized some social get together on the second half on 26 as well. So you'll have to block 25th for the full day conference and 26th half day for the TechHR study tours, visiting companies in Singapore. And then second half, we're going to do something together as a community, as a social gathering as well. So what you see in the brochure, of course, you'll have everything about TechHR and when it's happening and so on and so forth. Now, again, the theme of this year is rethinking what's possible, very aligned to the presentation and the reflection that we shared today. The way we've structured the agenda is on 4 main themes, which I'm going to take you through. But it's really critical that we reflect that TechHR is Asia's largest HR and work tech conference, not just HR, but for us, we look at people and work as our area of influence. So it's not HR function, but really how we leverage people and work for business success. Now, some stats. Now, these are the 2 days that I mentioned. So 25th is the full day conference, and 26th is when we're going to have the study tours and also some social activities in the afternoon. Now, the topic has 4 areas. The first one is about business growth. So when we talk about digital growth, we're talking about what are some of the levers at the business level that we own as people professionals. So we're talking about purpose and profit. We're talking about agility. We're talking about translating the ESG goals into workplace. what is the future of the office, what does being in the office mean, what is hybrid looks like, and how does that connect with business impact, and then people and culture as a function, and how does that connect with business profitability and business growth. The second big theme is the more futuristic one. So we're going to talk a lot about things that I spoke to you all today. We're going to talk about Web 3.0, we talk about metaverse, we're going to talk about a blockchain, we're talking about the digital connection and how we look at physical and virtual coming together. So we're going to talk a lot about the future, and also with the mindset saying the future is here. These technologies that we're talking about, DAO, NFTs, cryptocurrencies, metaverse, Web 3.0, they are not so far away, going back to our example of exponential growth. We're also going to talk about tech specifically for HR. This is a lot more functional. So we're talking about recruitment and employer brand and how we use technology, performance, wellness, talent acquisition, learning and development, upskilling. So this is more the third theme is more about the applications of technology in HR and functional HR. And then finally, we're going to have a track, which is our yellow track, which is about investing in yourself. So all our masterclasses and all our workshops are going to be in this track. In terms of speakers, TechHR, People Matters TechHR is always on top of the best speakers. So we have the privilege to have Dave Woolrich traveling to Singapore this year, and he's going to be physically in Singapore. You're going to get the opportunity to not only meet him at the event, but also be part of our exclusive CHRO masterclass that we're doing with him, and many others as well. So these you will see. We have a mix of leaders traveling globally, but also leaders, regional leaders, and also local leaders from different countries in Southeast Asia. And you'll have the opportunity to meet all of them. And this is only a sample. We have more than 100 speakers that are joining us for the conference. Now, what's important as well is that for some of you who had the opportunity to visit our first conference that happened in 2019, the 2020, as you can imagine, never was held physically because it was supposed to be held in February 2020, and that never happened. But 2019, we had the privilege to welcome some of you to Singapore, and some of you who were there would remember that TechHR is not a conference. TechHR is a journey of discovery, which means it's not the traditional conference. You go there passively and kind of go from session to session, but it has a lot of interactivity and a lot of outside-in innovation. So some of the things that you're going to see in these years, we have a series of Lego sessions that we've planned for you. We have added a layer of social presencing, which is one skill that we want to share with the HR professionals, and I'm going to explain you very quickly what it is. We are going to be sharing more about facilitation skills, and one of them is liberating structures. We're going to talk about sprints and how do you design sprints. We're going to bring a wellness method for yourself, which is the Wim Hof method, and we're going to have some masterclasses as well. So this is outside of the traditional sessions. These are some examples of some of the sessions that we do, which are more interactive and more hands-on. So you get the opportunity to do a Lego serious play masterclass. And there's a social theater, presencing theater, which is actually how you use theater to move cultural change. And we're going to teach you how to do that. We're going to understand liberating structures, which is one facilitation technology for groups. You can use both virtually and physical. And we're going to learn how to design sprints. So sprints are 5-day acceleration methodology for you to help you execute important projects faster. And we're going to introduce you to a breathing mechanism, which is called the Wim Hof method, which uses breathing as a way to align the mind and the body. And we're going to introduce you to this method for yourself. And we have 2 masterclasses, which are part of the Platinum passes. One is Dave Woolrich, specifically masterclass of action plan for CHROs in the post-pandemic world. And then we have a masterclass from Holger about these emerging technologies that we spoke a little bit earlier today. And how do you really use it for people in work? And as an HR professional, how can you become an early mover? on these technologies. We also have the study tours, as I shared with all of you. This is on 26th of August, and we're going to have the opportunity to host the largest HR startup program in Asia. And you're going to have the opportunity to meet a lot of the startups. And for me, having access to the startups is also having a little bit of an access to the future, because startups are always working on future ideas. These are some of our startup mentors. And our invitation is not just to come yourself as a leader, but how do you bring your team? And many organizations are using TechHR Singapore as a way to get their teams together. Maybe use TechHR as a mini offsite where you get people from your different locations in Southeast Asia and say, let's meet in Singapore and let's not only attend the conference, but maybe use that time to physically reconnect with each other as well. These are some of our partners, and of course, People Matters. We are a 12-year-old community. This is our 13th year now, and we've had the privilege to impact more than 1 million users across the world. And as Darwin was saying, our focus is India, Southeast Asia, and Australia, and New Zealand. That's our key focus. But now, because of the pandemic, we have the opportunity now to impact leaders around the world, and we have a community in Spanish speaking as well. So some of you, and I know in Philippines, some of you would be Spanish speaking as well. So remember that we do have some programs in Spanish for some of you who may be interested. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. Any questions, anything that I could clarify, happy to do that. And I'm just going to go on mute.
All right, thank you so much. Would we be able to have a copy of the brochure, this brochure that you just showed us, so that we can actually post it in the Philippine HR page so that more people will sign up and will be interested?
So the brochure is available online in the URL that so anybody can download it themselves. So you can maybe just put the URL and say download the brochure from this URL.
I think you have to. I think you have to put your information first before
That's
they
right.
send it.
That's right.
Mm. All right. So
Let's
for
start
we'd like
with
to question and answer. Go ahead, Coach Star.
Yeah, let's start with the Q&A. I'll start with the ball rolling. Esther, one of the things that I've been hearing over the past year, especially during the pandemic, when we have to pivot in using technology to adapt to to the new normal right now, is that many more HR professionals will be losing their jobs because of AI and robotics. What's your thought about this?
Thank you, Darwin, for this reflection and question. I think we saw this even before the pandemic, and we're seeing it every day. Like there are a lot of tasks that are being simplified. There are a lot of processes that have been automated, which basically means as humans, we need to move up the value chain. Now, what are the things that will not be automatable or will not be so easily automatable is those conversations, is that alignment from the business to the people. It will be the insight, the reflection, how do you reduce noise? So the more and more transactional your role is, the more at risk your job is. The more and more your job is about human alignment, connecting the dots, being strategic, the more your role or your job is safe. Because anything which is transactional can be automated, and automation means robots work 24/7. They don't need leave. They don't need, they don't get unwell. They don't have mood swings. So anything which is automatable will be automated, and it's already happening. And you are doing it for HR processes yourself. Anything which is more strategic, more human, will be the role that HR professionals will really take in the future.
So, in relations to that question, Esther, what would be your recommendation or your guidance to up and coming HR professionals, those who will just be graduating, or those who have just started their role in HR, who will be doing more of the tactical administrative work? How can they really be more prepared for the future? How can you future proof your role that you would not eventually lose your job in the HR in this or in the HR world?
Great question. Thank you. Thank you, Darwin, for that. I think if I was a graduate starting now in an HR role, my hat will be how do I understand the process that I'm working on? Because understanding the nuts and bolts of HR is very critical. So it's a great opportunity to enter in an entry level job and understand the nuts and bolts of what is it, what process I'm doing, what's the value that this process is adding to the business. Now, my invitation to each one of you will be how do I simplify it and how do I automate it? How do I automate this job will be my invitation to all of you. So then you are replacing actually yourself. So in that organization, let's say, imagine that you're doing data entry for. I'm just giving a very silly example. If you're entering data on, let's say, skills, or if you are digitizing employee files, let's say something very, 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 very simple stuff that some of you may be doing. Now, how do you automate that process? Will be my invitation. Can you be the champion of automation yourself? Now, when you do that, then suddenly somebody will identify that, listen, this guy understands technology, because that's a must. You must understand technology and you must understand that every process needs to be simplified and it needs to be adding value to the business. If you're working on a process that it's not adding value to the business, that role is 100% at risk because it's automatable and it doesn't have a connection with value to the business. So your job is to make sure you automate it, you simplify it, and you ask for one more role, saying, I'm ready for more. People who put their hands up and say, I'm ready for more, in my very humble experience of 25 years now, have never lost their job. Somebody will raise their hand and say, I'm ready for more. What else can I do? How else can I add value to the business? I think you're future proving yourself when you deliver value, when you simplify things around you, when you connect what you're doing with business impact, and where you're always ready to raise your hand for new projects. That's how you future proof, not just as an entry level, but I think it's true for all of us as well.
So, what you're trying to tell us is that in order for us to increase our value, and of course, like our compensation in the company, what we can do is think outside the box and be able to introduce ways on how we can actually automate ourselves so that we can move up to the next level, because most of the people, they come in, they think that I'm here because I have to do the job. For example, payroll. So every month you're just asking me to do payroll, but there's going to be some smarter person who would find out a way to automate that process and actually be paid a lot of money to do so. So it's better to be that person than the person who will one day and very quickly be, what do you call it? Don't want to call it like outdated, obsolete in the very close future because we're moving towards automation. Is that correct, Esther?
Esther?
Yeah, I think Tina, you nail it with that example of payroll. Now, if you're doing payroll, you've been doing payroll the same way for so many years. What is the value that you are bringing to that role? You know that process better than anyone else. Now, you are the person who is best equipped to simplify that, to automate that, and to take that process to the next level. So then you can do more strategic work, maybe working with the business leaders to say, okay, how we may change our compensation structure. Is there a more effective way to leverage the cost to company? Can we pay people in a way that it's more take home for them and less cost to company? That's the work you should be aspiring to do, right? And just by taking charge of that change, as you absolutely said, Tina, you are yourself moving up the value chain. Because you are just suddenly interested about how do I make this payroll process be more impactful to my business. And no CEO that I've ever met will, not want that behavior, that ownership behavior to say, well, I'm running payroll, but I want to go beyond just the operational part. I really want to add value to my business. And you have to be an excellent payroll manager. If you're not good at your job, all of that thing that Tina spoke about goes out of the window. Because if you're not really excellent at your job and you come and say, well, I think we can automate that, people will be like, please do not touch the process, because you have to be excellent at your work to be able to move the value chain. So that's my only one caveat to Tina's example.
Esther, there are many types of apps and programs that are coming out every year. And these programs are being updated every quarter, every half year, every year. And so it's a challenge for a lot of us that which of these programs shall we use? Of course, there's the basic Excel, but like before there was Photoshop, then there's like Canva, then there's like so many different new technologies. It's so overwhelming because the learning of these apps and programs do take a bit of time. How would you advise us to pick and choose what is the correct popular app to use, so that the time that we spend learning and maximizing the use of these programs is not put to waste, because we only have limited amount of time and resource and brain power.
Thank you, Tina. So there's no one answer
Yeah.
to that, and I think it, as you correctly know, it's about being updated on what's happening. And I think conferences like People Matters TechHR gives you that opportunity that in just 1.5 days you're gonna get exposed to a lot of things that are happening. And it just gives you that opportunity to say, well, I'm going to invest 2 days, but I'm going to get access to a lot of information. It's a great investment of my time, because I'll get to meet all the tech players. I'll get to meet the startups. I'll get to meet my peers. I'll get to meet even investors, people who are in the insiders actually. And it a lot of times is about getting out of your little box, because all of us live in a little box most of the days. And you need to get out of the box. Now, to get out of the box, you sometimes have to get physically out of that box. Means get out, go and explore. So how do you do that? I think I will do it in multiple answers. One is attend conferences, whether it's Tech HR or any conference. Make it a point that every year I attend 2, 3, 4 conferences, whatever is your budget available, but say once a year at least I'm getting out of my box physically. I'm going to meet people and get an outside perspective. That's one thing. The second thing is what you are already doing every Sunday, investing time to be together, to invest in yourself. I think congratulations, you're already in that path. That mindset of learning agility, no? And just be curious and experiment. Find out what are people doing. Listen, how are you guys automating payroll? If you're a payroll manager, how are you using it? Understanding the pros and cons. Experimenting small. Say, I'm going to automate the payroll of the HR team first. Let's see what happens. I'm going to use this tool. If it fails, it fails. Right? So start small and start experimenting. There's no right or wrong technology. It's about how do you use it, how do you experiment, and don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel that, oh, I have to get the perfect technology, the perfect process, the perfect everything. There's no such a thing as perfect. Just start small. And if it works, you scale it. If it doesn't work, you throw it and try something else and keep trying, and you learn from it.
Agree. Esther, let me wear the hat of a HR decision maker and employer when it comes to choosing the right tools or technology that we normally want to adopt or use in an organization. A lot of, as Mentor Tina has mentioned, there are a lot of applications, tools and processes out there that you can actually buy online or reach out to a vendor. But one of the things that I'm observing is that both international and local HR tools, HR applications, there's a significant investment that the company has to do. And if I am an HR leader, what will be your guidance or suggestions to for me to be able to go in front of the board and say that this investment is important to us?
Thank you, Darwin. And we have a full a masterclass workshop in TechHR for this very big dilemma, because it's a reality. It's a big dilemma. Now, the way that we invite you to approach is that first you start with the business problem. What is the problem, and what's the impact of that problem to the business? Right? So let's take the same example as Tina. We're talking about automating payroll, for example. Now, what's the problem to the business? Because the business doesn't really care about the HR problems. The business cares about the business problems. So is it about cost savings? Is there a cost saving opportunity? Is there a benefit in terms of maximizing the, not only reducing cash but enhancing? So what's the business problem that we're trying to solve? That's your starting point. Now the second point would be, what are the different alternatives of solutions and how we solve them? Now when you go to the decision maker, you will have to present a success story. We have tried this and it works. You can't go with a proposal unless you have some early data that shows that this investment has ROI. So if you want a foolproof way to get budgets for anything, start with the business problem, quantify what's the cost or the benefit for the business, and show the pilots saying, we have done this already, here, this is what we have learned. And many players will be happy to do a pilot for you, even for free or for a very small amount, which maybe it's in your budget control already. So when you go into a decision maker, go with the business problem, go with your recommendation, and that recommendation needs to be sitting on top of real pilots. It can't be, oh, we need to buy this new payroll tool, it costs so much, please approve it. That will not fly. It's a, what's the problem? What all have you tried? What all have you learned? What's your recommendation? Sitting on real pilot data, not on opinions of Esther or Tina or Darwin. Opinions don't get ROI. You need real evidence of pilots.
It seems very, a lot of people think when the in Silicon Valley, some of the highest paid professionals are the engineers or those who are working in software programs, Facebook, Amazon, and they really spend on technology a lot of money just to pay for one engineer, two engineers, what more for teams of engineers. So a lot of traditional businesses believe that, if you introduce technology, it also introduces a high amount of cost. And there is no guarantee that these technology, people who claim that they know how to produce for you, there's no test pilot yet, right? Because usually you have to pay the down payment, you have to design it first, and then you have to see, and then they give you like what it would look like. So people are afraid to let go of the money initially because this is the first time that they are going to work with people who believe that they can automate. As an HR, as a person inside the company, how can we best navigate? Because in a way, if we're endorsing these new technologies, we're also putting ourselves on the line and asking the company to invest. But also, there's also that risk that, it might not be a completed project. So, how would you help us give more courage that this is a worthwhile risk to take? Right, especially like you have to respond, you have to endorse, and you have to say, boss, this is really what I think we need at this time.
Thank you. Thanks, Tina, for that. And I think the courage, it's to me connected with the ownership and accountability. So I hear you when you say that, how can I endorse when I'm not, 100%? And you'll never be 100%. When you take risks, there will be a percentage of failure. Now, there are a lot of things you can test without having to spend a lot of money. And I'll give you maybe one example on People Matters particularly. So we now have a very large editorial team. So our business model is content generation, and it's very critical for us that we have a very strong content generation team. Now, we have been planning our content in Excels and Google Sheets and so on and so forth. But that's become too complex now, because now we have communities across Southeast Asia, India, Australia, New Zealand. Now we need to make sure that we have a tool that connects our content plan, our social plan, our managing our traffic, managing our social followers. And right now we have to do it across multiple platforms. And it's becoming humanly very, very, manual. So, as an editorial person, I want to be writing and contributing to the community. And as opposed of doing that, I spend most of my time updating Excel sheets and updating, traffic in one Google sheet, in another Google sheet, in another Google sheet. Now, for that editorial person, what I expect from that editorial leader, and that's what my team is doing right now, is to come and say, well, this is not working. We need to automate that. Now, they have gone and find out different platforms that can aggregate all editorial planning and editorial execution in one window. And there are multiple platforms. Now, moving from the manual process to a tool process is going to be a challenge, because it requires a lot of discipline, it requires a lot of rigor, and it requires 3 times the work. Until we actually implement that tool, we all have to work 3 times more, because we need to still keep running our websites live. We have to change the engine of the plane while we're still flying it, which basically it's gonna require us to work 2, 3, 4, 5 times more than before. Now, the courage is there. The courage is to bite the bullet and say, I know this is gonna be difficult, but I will make it successful. And the success is not dependent on the tool or on the people who are behind the tool and those very highly paid engineers. Of course, you have to choose those rights. But the success is on the courage plus the resilience that I will make this work, which means I'm willing to work 3 times harder. I'm willing to work nights. I'm willing to work weekends, because I know this is important for my business. And I know that after 1 month, this nightmare will now start to see some fruits of my work. And in another 2 months, the editorial planning of People Matters, which includes newsroom, content stories, editorial interviews, social, everything is going to be in one place, and no more manual entry in any Google sheet. And it will be accessible to everyone in People Matters. Anybody who needs any data will log in and see it themselves. They don't have to come and ask anybody for what's the traffic on Philippines in the last week. You go log in and see it yourself. Now, some people will see that as a fear, that what if it fails? Or what if if it's not successful, what will Esther say? Will I lose my job? You have to make it successful, because it needs to happen. It is the future. We can't manage editorial processes anymore manually. So bite the bullet, take the courage, and make it your own personal accountability to make it successful. I haven't seen any failure when somebody takes ownership and say, I will make it successful. There's small failures, you fine tune and you make changes, but you have to make it successful. And I think that's the mindset.
Agree.
I
Tina.
Yeah, you've made a really good point. I think in the Philippines there's not a lot of technology yet, but if we look outside, so many big companies are already integrating technology. My question lies in, usually a good HR officer in the Philippines, there is a duplicate with operations. So if you're an operations leader and an HR manager, it's a good fit. Finance and slash accounting, there's also a good fit for HR. But right now, what you're introducing to us is that there's also another opportunity for technology and HR. Because usually, the technology guy is always somebody else. It's not, they don't really have an HR role. They're they're always on the other side of the table. And people just refer to them whenever there's like when the computer's broken. But now it seems that there might be a push for technology slash HR. But how do you envision the two to form? Right? Because operations slash HR, yeah, of course. And you just send an HR manager to the field to talk to the people, labor relations, accounting, finance is for like the payroll, the taxes. That might be an opportunity. But this is quite new, HR slash technology. How do other people in other countries do that? Is it very common, or is it just it's a new idea as of the moment?
Well, I think it's an invitation, and I love the way you put it, Tina. I think our job, and again, going back to the question about future proving our career, our job as professionals in the context of business, we have 5 responsibilities, and I love to share that with all of you, because to me, that gives us the future, that it's not just about X or Y, or it's all about the outcomes. Now, what are the outcomes that we own? And I'm talking about HR in particular, but I think that's true for all professionals. What am I responsible for as I grow in the career ladder? So even if I'm an entry-level person, or I'm the CHRO, or I'm the CEO, what am I responsible for? I'm responsible to simplify things around me. How do I eliminate complexity? How do I reduce things and make it essential to everyone? There's so much of complexity, so much of noise, so much going on. Now, how do I simplify? That's my number one responsibility. The more I simplify, the more value I create to my team, the more value I create to my company. Now, that's one layer. And I'll come to the technology part, because you will see that sometimes to simplify, I have to use technology. So for me, technology is not, oh, let's all do technology because we attended this HR Cafe session. Esther said that, we all need to use technology. No. Technology is a means to an end. Now, to what end? Number one role, or number one accountability, responsibility we have is to simplify things, right? The second thing which we are responsible for is making sure that we are empowering our teams, delegating, so then we have more time. And that's where even automation comes in. How do I create more bandwidth for myself? Delegating or automating? I need to free myself to be able to do more strategic work, regardless of whether I'm an entry level or a CHRO. Each one of us have the opportunity to do more strategic work. So that's the second layer. The third layer is about helping the business predict, what should we be doing? What should we be focusing? What's the right path? What's the right path for my team? What's the right path for this project? I may not be the CHRO, but I'm working on this one project on, let's say, employee engagement. How do I bring more and more prediction to the work I do? Again, you need technology for that. You need to be able to gather data. You need to be able to analyze data. So remember, technology is a means to an end and not a fad or a fashion thing. The fourth thing that we need to focus on, very important for us in HR, is to systemize. Now, a lot of those HR processes, how do we create simplification, but how do you make it scalable and sustainable and the right experience across everyone in different teams? Again, you need technology for that. You can't systemize things without technology. Whether it's an onboarding process, whether it's an exit process, whether it's a recognition process, how are you going to make sure that it's experienced equally by everyone? It's not humanly possible to do it humanly, because tomorrow you may leave the organization and everything will fall apart. How do you systemize? You need technology to be able to do that. Otherwise, you are not building processes, you're not building legacy to your organization. You're making it dependent on you. And that's not the role of a leader. The role of a leader is to create scalable and sustainable processes that go beyond yourself. And thanks, Darwin, for putting that as well. Then finally is, how do we structure things? Do we have the right people in the right seats? Do we have, and that's important, do we have the right communication access? Do we have the right accountability? Again, you need technology for that. Or charts change every day. Who is doing what in the organization? Without technology, how do I as a professional know who do I reach out to? How do I get access to information that I need to be able to get access? So structure to me is not just org chart, but it's structure of information. Who has what kind of information? Who has what kind of role? Who has what kind of accountability? And hence, how do you decentralize access? Again, you need technology. So any of these 5 roles that are going to be critical for your growth, whether it's simplification, delegation, prediction, systemizing, or structuring, you are going to have to underpin it through technology. Now, you don't have to eat the whole elephant in one go, but start small, because otherwise you're really doing very operational, very tactical work. And I think it's never too late to start. So don't get discouraged to say, well, I haven't even started. Well, that's a great. The first way is to just start with one small step. Pick up one of the projects that you're working on, which is critical to the business, and think of these 5 things we discussed. How do I simplify it? How do I make sure that it's not my role, but I delegate and I get a cross functional team to work on this? How do I predict that this project is going to be successful? How do I create a process or a structure that underpins technology, even if it's very small, right? Start small. Thank you, Darwin, for summarizing. Work on one critical project and start from there. And love your point, Tina, about technology is core to everyone's role, not HR, everyone. So you need to start experimenting and playing with technology, because that's, to me, we are already late if we are not doing it, but it's never too late. We start today.
That is a lot, Esther. That is a lot of learning in the last 5 minutes that you were sharing to us the five responsibilities or the HR outcomes that we own as HR professionals. And I really hope, and I'm sure that all of the people that are listening and watching right now, and all of the many people who will be listening and watching the replay of this program, since it's posted in all of our social media of the Philippines HR group, will really learn a lot from this episode. But let's go to a few of my last questions, and this is really more into the upcoming Tech HR. And to be honest, Esther, I'm really very excited about the upcoming Tech HR conference, because post prior pandemic, we were all supposed to go to Singapore way back 2019, but it was canceled because of the pandemic. But right now, there's a lot of excitement for a lot of Filipino HR leaders to go and meet you guys up in Singapore this coming August. Actually, Tina and me and Rona will be there to ensure that we cover the whole event. Now, if you will see the registration of the HR leaders who have uh, given their interest or registered through the People Matters website, that they said that they are committed to join us in Singapore come August. We already have more than 140 registrations, by the way. 60% of these HR leaders are saying that they will be investing it on their own, meaning they'll be the one who will be paying for their plane ticket and hotel, because I really believe on the value of the 2-day HR conference. And to be honest, just meeting Sir David Ulrich and having the opportunity to have uh, what do you call this, a a tour to the different top companies in Singapore and be immersed on their best practices is something that everyone should look forward to. But what would be your advice to these HR leaders who are planning to go ahead and talk to their CEOs, talk to their presidents, and say, hey, this is an important event and might as well uh, have the company sponsor it? How can an HR leader will sell the idea that there is value to be represented at the upcoming Tech HR Summit?
Thank you, Darwin, for that question. I think, again, it goes back to start with the business challenges. What are those business challenges that keep the CEO or the board or the business leaders awake at night? Whether it's attraction of talent, do we attract the right caliber of talent, or whether it's retention, whether it's engagement, whether it's alignment, cascading down business. So you need to start with the business challenge and the business problem always, because honestly, as a CEO of the organization, I could be least, it's in my least priority list whether the HR colleague is going to go to a conference or not. It's not that I don't want him or her to go, it's just that it's not in my top 100 priority list as a CEO. So you start with what's in it for me as a CEO, what's in it for me as the business leader, right? So you have to start your conversation saying, I've been thinking about these 3 projects that we're working on. One is on this, one is on this, one is on that. Now I have been thinking about how can we learn from other organizations that are ahead of us. One. Number 2, what are the kind of technologies available out there that could help us? So I would love to go and meet some of those people on the ground and some of their clients and understand how they're using it. And number three, I would invite you to not go alone. Go with maybe somebody from your business team. Go with your ops head. Go with your tech head to say, it's not HR, it's finally a cross-functional team that is going to solve the business problems. So there'll be somebody in your organization who's championing the people and the culture agenda, which is maybe come with your CEO, say, why don't we both go? Because we need to get exposed about what's the future of people and culture. So the best way to maybe get your CEO to agree is say, let's both go. Let's go and find out what are other organizations doing. How are they managing the great resignation? How are they looking at attracting talent? What are the technologies out there? Can we go and get exposed? Your CEO may come and say, no, you go, I can't go, because CEOs are very unlikely to be able to travel for a people event. But why not? Say, why don't we both go? And if he says no, then go with your head of strategy, go with your head of technology. Say, we both go. Because the end in mind is to come back with solutions and give a commitment that I will come back with recommendations on how to solve these three problems. So you start with the business problem. There is a throughput, which is attending the conference with a very clear objective. I want to learn how others do it. I want to learn what technologies are available. I want to get exposed to companies that maybe are ahead of us. And my commitment is that I'm going to come back and I'm going to prepare a presentation for the executive team, or I'm going to start a pilot after discussing with you. There has to be an outcome of that trip. It can't be a promise. Promise don't have ROI. There has to be a commitment from your side saying, after the trip, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to share it with everyone. I'm going to prepare a presentation for the board. I'm going to accelerate these three projects. There has to be a commitment. And I haven't seen a single CEO who will say no. It's your ability to persuade and influence through commitment connected to the business goals.
Thank you,
Sorry, long
Esther.
answer. Long answer.
I know you have a hard stop, Esther. Last few words from you.
Well, I'm very excited to finally meet you guys in Singapore, and I'm very, very excited to hear that so many of you are already excited to come. And I'm personally delighted, and I look forward to seeing you in Singapore on 25th and 26th of August.
That's true. So thank you so much, Coach Darwin. What was your insight after hearing Esther?
Well, aside from the things that she mentioned on about how we can adopt and embrace new technology and how we'll be able to use technology and embrace change and be able to really push ourselves to think out of the box and really see what the world can offer on what are the things that the other industries, other companies are using to be more competitive. I think that's something that is, I know, it's valuable. Aside from the fact that I really love the last part where she mentions about what are the five things that is is expected for HR. I really love that. That actually itself, the five responsibilities or the HR outcomes, that's something. It's a whole series itself. It's a whole episode itself. It's something that we discussing. But I'm happy that Esther was able to share that to us. And of course, Tech HR Singapore, August 25 and 26. We're still accepting registrations for all the HR leaders who would like to avail of the free VIP pass. As I mentioned, because of the partnership of the Philippines HR group in People Matters, we were given 100 free VIP pass, and this is only for the Philippines, guys. They never release any VIP pass in other regions, but we would like to make sure that we maximize this opportunity. So it's worth almost $500. What you just need to do is you need to take care of your travel and lodging arrangements for the 2-day conference. As mentioned by Esther, the first day is a full-blown conference. The second day is a tour of the top companies in Singapore. It's a learning tour among different top companies in Singapore, where we'll be able to learn their best practices, their best technologies, and we can bring that to the Philippines, right? So it's like exciting. We're still open. Our registration is up to extended up to July 15. So please register, and we'll be happy to extend the invitation to HR leaders, to CEOs, CFOs, as long as you are a leader in your organization, they register now.
A lot of people think that the world revolves around the Philippines kasi everything that we see, hear, touch, and experience are all about the Philippines. But in reality, the Philippines is just a small country in the midst of globalization. And totoo lang, ang dami na talagang advancement in technology in other parts of the world. And the problem is kasi syempre we're so busy with the daily task when managing our companies that it takes a special conference like this to introduce brand new ideas that that's not something that we're used to for. It will open the box. So if this is how you look at things, it will open the way you see things. And if you meet other people with different ideas, it will also give you ideas on how to improve the processes you have in your own company. As you can see kanina dun sa brochure niya, 'di ba, yung mga activities nila, it's not the common leadership. How to like develop your leadership skills. It's not it's there's Lego design, how to design programs in a different way, how to use breathing techniques that's not just like yung normal na naririnig natin dito. uh, there were a lot of different concepts that were introduced na would admit I've not heard in the Philippines pa about Coach Darwin. Dito kasi
Correct,
puro
correct.
mga team building Yung tatalon-talon, alam mo yon yung mga may toilet paper roll, yung mga akyat ng, di ba yung mga ganun? It's a totally new ball game now, my friends. Everywhere
Correct.
else, di ba? And,
So,
go coach.
I mean, if you're investing on something, why not invest on
Yeah,
something that is being considered as best practice in a
yeah.
global setup and not only locally or domestic, di ba?
Right. And a lot of people think, hindi, ano lang naman ako, HR lang naman ako And the question is, bakit may lang? If you,
Mm,
di ba, what,
ako.
what Esther was saying, if you really want to boost your career, you might need to consider adding technology in your hat. Anyway, you're
Agree.
doing everything already. Might as well add that. Kasi, promise, ikaw lang talaga siguro sa buong kumpanya mo that will take that initiative to introduce technology. And it doesn't mean if you're HR, you need to be a good programmer or good engineer. Not necessarily. But you need to understand how technology works so that maybe you can introduce it inside your company. Because if you don't know what blockchain is or NFT is or like, all these other concepts, how can you even talk to your CEO on that scale? Kasi sigurado tatanungin ka talaga niya kung alam mo or hindi. At the very least, have that experience. Put yung feet mo, dip your feet in the water so that you actually have an idea. Kahit idea lang. Kasi once na nagigets mo, and you will meet other people who get that idea and who can explain it to you in layman's terms. So it's also a networking event. So, and might be a career networking event. A lot of our kababayans, they might want to work in Singapore. So this might be a good experience for you to show other people from different companies what you've got and maybe be pirated to work overseas. Diba? Coach Armin, wag mo kami iwan.
And then for me, ano nga sabi ko nga, the fact that Sir David Ulrich is there, it's already a go for me.
Worthwhile.
Yeah, worthwhile na. So again, we're inviting everyone, every HR leader that is watching right now, that is part of the Philippines HR group, please do register. Again, we are giving away 100 VIP pass. It's worth $499. It's free. If you are an HR leader from the Philippines, we will endorse you to have that free VIP pass so that you will only just take care of your travel and lodging for the 2-day conference, and we will be seeing you at the upcoming Tech HR conference in August 25th and 26th. So
Last
that's
words
it.
lang.
Last
Last word,
words.
kung may gusto, may paraan. Kung ayaw, maraming dahilan. Kung nagje-jelly yung partner mo, kung bakit ka pupunta, dalhin mo nga yung partner mo. Pa-shopping mo, tapos ikaw naman mag-conference. It's very rare to have such opportunity. If you were
Agree.
overseas, hindi mo siya mababayaran. Even if you want to join, ang hirap. You cannot because it's an exclusive event. Eto, mura lang talaga. Yes, merong airport, but it's not expensive given what you're supposed to get. So we strongly encourage everyone to join the People Matters TechHR Singapore. The link to register is on the chat box. Try. Baka may makuha kayong VIP pass. Pag nakuha
Mm-mm.
ninyo yung VIP pass, saka na ninyo problemahin yung paano nyo mag-ano. But it might be a very, very good avenue. And it
Correct.
might actually change your life. The
Agree.
people you
Agree.
will meet there and the people you will meet together are the people that you need to meet after. So you don't plan for the present, you plan for the future as well. Malay mo baka magtrabaho ka sa sa kumpanya ni Coach Darwin, 'di ba? Not in the Philippines, baka sa Singapore pa or sa Malaysia. Oh, who knows? And it's also because you joined this conference. Coach Darwin, back to you.
We'll see you again next week for another exciting, fun, and of course, learning episode of the HR Cafe, Usapang Trabaho, Buhay, Iba Pa. Thank you for always supporting us every Sunday, 3 p.m. My name is Coach Darwin Rivers, and of course, I'm with Mentor Tina. Maraming salamat po. See you all next week. Bye!